Welcome to the True Talk podcast. I'm your host, Jenna Stakis. Here, we keep it real, we keep it fun, but we also give you some motivation and inspiration to living your truth. Let's get into it, True Crew. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the True Talk podcast. I'm your host, Jenna Stakis, and you know we keep it real, we keep it raw, we keep it fun, and we keep it honest here on True Talk. So, without further ado, today we have a licensed, registered nurse practitioner, but here's the twist, everyone. She practices holistic health, which you know I love and I'm all about. So I am so excited to have Kitty with us. Kitty is an advanced practice registered nurse. She is a board certified family nurse practitioner who received her education and trained through the University of Texas in Austin in 2010. And she received her bachelor's degree in science, studying pre-medicine with emphasis on nutrition and organizational management at the Purdue University. And I could go on and on of all her accolades and her certifications and everything, but pretty much Kitty has completed training through the Institute of Functional Medicine and is continuing her education through the School of Functional Medicine. After working in other practices for about 15 years, she started her own practice with Enlighten Holistic Health, located in Austin, Texas. And it's been about 7 months since starting, and she works every day to learn and grow her business while continuing to learn and grow as a holistic provider. So, Kitty, welcome to the True Talk podcast.
Hi, Jenna. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be with you here today.
Same here, girl. I am so excited to get into this conversation. As you know, and we've talked about before, I healed through pure holistic therapy. So I stand by your work 110 million%. So let's get into it, Kitty. Why go the medical route?
I was diagnosed with eczema when I was a kid. I think everybody is familiar with eczema some way or another, maybe has it themselves or knows someone that has it. Mine was really bad. I had really itchy skin that oozed pus from my legs and my scalp and my arms. At one point, when I was first diagnosed, I had to wrap my legs in gauze from around my legs and my arms because I oozed so bad. So it was very embarrassing. It itched. It was so uncomfortable. I was later referred to a dermatologist who saw me for most of my childhood, gave me the pretty standard steroid creams, told me to moisturize, and that was it. Never asked me about my diet. Spoiler alert, I ate the typical American diet. I ate a lot of candy, fast food, drank soda. He never asked me about my life situation. I was an immigrant. We were kind of middle to middle low class income, just trying to make it through life. And yeah, we didn't have, the most, we weren't the most resourceful being immigrants. So kind of that was a factor. And then he never asked me about allergies. So I really didn't know what the cause was, what was factoring into my eczema, just gave me medications to treat it. When I was, a few years later, I figured I just felt in my young age I needed to change my diet. So I went from drinking soda pretty regularly to I switched it to orange juice. I kind of intuitively knew I should have something more nutritious than soda every
How old
day.
were you when
I
you
was
made that
around
switch?
10.
Wow.
So I really haven't drank soda much. I gave up candy at that age.
Let's take a
And
minute. Let's pause. Guys, are you understanding and listening that at 10 years old, she made the conscious decision to give up unhealthy foods, sugars, candy, soda. You know how hard that is at 10 years old when all of your friends are going and
Mhm.
they're participating in the piñata being broken and picking up all the candy, going Halloween trick or treating, eating all the candy, eating all the cake that they can. Kitty made the conscious decision to be disciplined enough to cut out all of that to possibly try and see if that would help her eczema. Like, just take a minute. And if you have kids and you're listening, I want to know, let me know if your child would make that conscious decision and be like, "Hey, mom, I need to cut this. I need to cut this cuz I think this is what's affecting it." Like, I am mind blown. Mind blown.
Well, it's not to say I didn't have it forever from, from 10 years old
Of
on.
course.
Although as an adult, I realized that, yeah, it doesn't work with my body. So
Yeah,
I
of
really
course.
don't do it now, but I did start cutting down and I saw, yeah, health benefits from doing that. And then my journey of kind of understanding how food and how my environment would play roles in triggering my eczema, is just kind of a lifelong journey. So from
Mhm.
there, I actually in college I worked in a health food store, which then gave me another level of knowledge and understanding supplements and alternative medicine because I had to sell it, but then I had to get a really good understanding of how to do that. So that built my interest in learning more nutrition. And I wanted to, with my childhood experience, since I didn't have the greatest experience with conventional medicine, I wanted to help people in that way and healing them, but I wanted to do it in a better way. So then
Mhm.
I did pre-medicine, but I was kind of exploring what could I do similar. And then I decided to become a nurse. And that's where I worked with people. I listened to their stories. I worked with people, kids, babies to elderly, and I got to hear lots of stories of their health journeys, which I loved. But it was still kind of fast paced, in and out of hospitals.
Mhm.
I was a med surge nurse, and I got to, really hear and try to help and understand what was people were going through. But, in conventional our, medicine that we deal with on a day to day doesn't allow time to really understand and take time to help people in preventing disease.
Yeah.
So I wanted to become a nurse practitioner because I thought that was the route to really help and understand and be able to listen to people. But in that arena, I had 10 to 20 minutes to sit down with someone, and I would oftentimes run over because I would take the time to listen, but there really wasn't to make money, can't well, through the insurance system, can't really spend too much time, although I would just do it anyway.
Oh,
But then I found alternative ways to try to build my practice through Ayurvedic medicine and functional medicine to
mhm.
really deep dive into more holistic healing. And that's why I started my own business, because I wanted to do things a better way, be able to spend time with people and understand their health concerns, but really find the root cause of disease so that people long term would be able to heal from disease and then prevent and optimize their health.
I love it. I've preached it and I will continue to preach it and say it until I am blue in the face. To find the root cause of whatever ailment you are dealing with is going to be your answer. The medicine, and I'm not saying this for everything, complete disclaimer, please talk to your doctor, contact your medical professional. I am not a doctor, but from my experience, from going from neurologist to neurologist, immunoneurologist to different doctors and all this kind of stuff, to then coming across a doctor who by trade is a chiropractor but practices holistic therapies and the Yulon method. That is where I officially healed, because she looked at me from head to toe, inside and out, not just surface level and what I would tell her my symptoms were. So do not put off this stuff thinking that it's a bunch of hocus pocus mumbo jumbo. I thought it at first too, but I'm telling you guys, and we're seeing it even now, that the effects of, you know, the dyes in our food. Why do you think that they finally they got rid of the red 40, the dye
Mm-hmm.
in our food? Why y'all think that happened? Because it's not good. Like, it's poison here, people. So
Mm-hmm.
to really be cognizant of that, and that's why I really wanted to have Kitty on the podcast, is to share how her business is in Enlighten Holistic Health. Her business name is to find the root cause and
That's right.
to help people. And that's the end of the story. Like, most holistic health professionals, and correct me if I'm wrong, Kitty, and I'm not saying that conventional medicine doctors don't want to help people, because I believe there's good ones out there that do care and they want to help people. Otherwise, they wouldn't have
Absolutely.
gone into the medical field. But
Yes.
holistic health professionals truly see you for who you are. Like, you see me as Jenna Stakis, not as patient number 54079. Come on down, you know?
Right. Yeah, everybody is an individual. We all have different environmental factors we're exposed to, different foods we're exposed to. So, yeah, people can be diagnosed with the same things, but in their body, they have different genes. Their body
Exactly.
responds to things differently. So, it's going to present a lot differently and it's going to heal differently
Mm-hmm.
than somebody else. So it's
Absolutely.
really good to understand a person and an individual in their health journey versus somebody else.
Yeah, because what works for Jane Smith isn't going to work for Joe Smith. Probably not. There, it's two different bodies, two different systems. So let's talk more about root cause for you and in your practice. What does root cause healing actually mean? How do you go about going down that path of healing the root cause?
Yes. So it's identifying, someone that's been diagnosed with a disease or they have some sort of discomfort, chronic pain, fatigue that they just can't figure out, they just don't feel right. They don't feel like themselves. So it's really trying to understand what could be factors that are playing into that. Is it your diet? Is it something you're exposed to? Some sort of chemical like red dye 40, some sort of, other chemical that you're exposed to at work, whatever it may be. But it's really trying to figure out what those causes are so that, hopefully we can make tweaks and change those things and see if it does help improve symptoms along with treating how you're feeling, trying to get you to feel better during that time so that long term, right, you don't continue to have disease worsen and that it improves. And then once you figure out those root causes, then again you have a plan set up to hopefully prevent that from recurring or becoming worse over time or never coming
Mm-hmm.
back.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So we're hearing how the root cause is why you're having these symptoms. You want to attack that cause in order to heal, obviously, right? What are some common symptoms that you have seen in your practice and in your years and experience when it comes to hormone imbalances, gut issues, fatigue, burnout? Like, what are some other common symptoms that are along with these?
Yeah, that is such a great question because so many people are affected by hormone, or they're starting to show signs of hormonal imbalances. And
Mm-hmm.
actually, the last two that you listed, fatigue, burnout, these are underlying, or these are kind of starter symptoms that occur that can kind of ignite those hormonal imbalances. So
Mm-hmm.
when we start having burnout, when we're stressed, stress is a huge driver of inflammation. And when we start having inflammation, that's becomes more of a daily basis, then it really doesn't allow our body to work as well because it may be causing stress. It's causing stress on our body, which then further ignites things to kind of get backed up or get overloaded.
Mm-hmm.
And then it leads to more fatigue because our body's working hard to try to find a balance. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the thing that people don't realize, that really understand our body is always working hard to keep and maintain a good balance. And I have a lot of people that tell me, yeah, I'll see people in their 40s to 50s saying, oh, I feel like, yeah, the hormones are getting out of balance. You know, it's my
Mm-hmm.
hormones, it's perimenopause. That's the reason why I'm not feeling well. It's low T, low testosterone. I was like, well, there's a reason why your hormone, we'll check hormones and see, oh yeah, I agree with you. That's what I'm seeing in your lab work. I was like, but there's a reason why. It's not just because the hormones are low.
Right.
The hormones are low because they're
Because of
depleted,
something. Right.
right, from something else. And that's why, I love your story, Jenna, that you had these kind of underlying festering things that were developing, and so kind of sharing your story and helping people understand, like, if you're not feeling well, if you've been fatigued for months, over weeks to months, well, that's your body telling you something, and you should listen, because the longer you delay, the more problematic it's going to be later. And
Yeah.
then it's gonna just snowball into something else, and unless we address it sooner.
Yeah. And you know what's crazy, guys, is that the first symptom that appeared for me was a couple cases where I would just lose balance randomly. Like I'd be
Mhm.
standing, I'd lose balance. And that didn't shock me because I have had vertigo before. So I was like, oh, maybe it was just a vertigo spell or something. Or maybe I'm, undernourished, like my blood sugar's low, I need to eat or something like that. I never thought
Mhm.
twice about it. But what stood out the most to me were two things. One was that I could not make it through the day without sleeping at least 20 minutes around, like, between the window of like 12 and 2. If
Mhm.
I didn't sleep, and I remember I was working from home, I had a remote job at the time, and it was lunchtime, and I would take lunch and I would sleep for half of it because I had to. And I slept 10 to 12 hours the night before. But I was
Mm.
like, my eyes were so heavy, I couldn't keep them open. You would have thought I was awake for 48 hours straight. And then the other one was short term memory loss. I'm like,
Mm.
why can't I remember the conversation I just had yesterday? Like that's a little excessive. And I remember going to my mom and talking to my mom, and I'm like, I don't know. I'm like super tired. And she's like, well, just take a nap. I'm like, no, 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 no. Like something's off. Something's wrong. And it was like how they say mother's intuition was like, I had that intuition internally and I was understanding. And I'm like, something's not right. My body's trying to tell me something. So yeah,
And that was in
those
your early 20s too, right, Jenna?
23. I was
23.
23.
Yeah.
Yep.
23-year-old shouldn't be. Well, honestly, everybody, yeah, at any age, I see so many people that are, dealing with similar things. But yeah, when I hear that, when I hear, someone being so tired that they have to, take a nap midday, and then plus they're already getting 10 to 12 hours of sleep, something's not right. Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. Like the math
Right.
is not mathing there.
Mm-hmm.
Um
Mm-hmm.
so on the topic of red flags, because a red flag went up for me there. Let's
Yes.
talk about red flags, Kitty, because with your experience in conventional medicine and then moving to holistic, I'm curious to hear what is a red flag for you in conventional healthcare.
I find this funny, but not funny. It's just truth.
Yeah. Hence the
Yeah,
name, True Talk.
right. True talk. We're having this true talk, all true of what we're
Yep.
saying today. And so, yeah, one of the red flags I find in conventional medicine is when providers, and again, don't get me wrong, there are great providers out there,
Absolutely.
and we have to work under pretty tight conditions, especially when we're taking insurance. Usually, insurance doesn't pay, or they only pay certain time increments for patient visits. So, like 10 to 20 minutes is a pretty standard time for people to charge for a visit, and they will not pay for anything more than that,
Wow.
typically. But if you're seeing a provider and, for 10 minutes and they're not asking you about your lifestyle, kind of your personal life situation, depending on what's going on, especially if you've had chronic fatigue and you've had issues for weeks to months, if they're not asking you about your lifestyle, your diet, that's a big red flag. And then they're prescribing something to you.
Wave the red flag, girl. Wave that red flag because
Ri-
in 10 minutes, what can you learn about a patient? Let's be real.
Right. You won't know much. You could maybe look at their intake ahead of time, but if they're automatically just giving you something after 10 minutes, you got to wonder, what are they really offering me that's going to help me? And is this
Mhm.
truly going to be the best thing for me?
Yeah. Okay, can I tell you that my doctor, who I see, Dr. Lay, I love her, God bless her. When I went to my first appointment with her, I filled out, it took me 20 minutes to just fill out the intake form. It was covered front to back, from top to bottom, of columns to answer. And a lot of it was repeated, but like I'm
Hmm.
telling you, it covered like every organ system part of me. It was insanely in depth. And
Hmm.
you go to a conventional healthcare, a medical office, and it asks you date of birth, name, date of your last period, where your pain is, what your symptoms are, and if you've had any surgeries in the past, and if you're on any medication. That's it. Done. What's that going to
Right.
do? I mean, it tells you
Exactly.
some stuff, but it's not going to tell you much.
It's not going to tell you much.
What are there any other red flags that you've noticed?
Yeah, in conventional medicine, medicine has been, I tell people all the time that medicine's kind of a newer science. It was developed pretty much during the time of World War One, kind of early 1900s, maybe a little bit in the 1800s too. But it's really not that long ago that medicines kind of come in the forefront, and having penicillin was the big game changer in the world of medicine. Helped people not die of simple infections, bacterial infections. But if you think about it, a lot of doctors still just prescribe antibiotics, but it might not be a bacterial infection that they need that antibiotic for. So that's another thing. There's side effects to medications. So you really need to be careful when you choose, when someone's offering your medication, like really kind of look and understand what's the benefit, what's the risk. And that's
Hmm.
what I like to go through with patients. I am a holistic provider, but I still offer, I try to blend both Eastern, Western medicine, just really try to give people what options are out there and tell them and go over, well, here's the risk, here's the benefits. So, and what works better for you, and what do you
Right.
think could be ideal in your life situation, or this is what I would recommend for you, but does that fit into what you think would work best
Right.
for you?
Right. But you're giving them that option. So, like,
Yes.
I will be completely transparent, and I've never said this publicly, like online. I've only ever told like friends and stuff whenever they've asked. But it's called True Talk for a reason. It's my podcast, so I can say whatever I want. Um, but during the time of my symptoms and, everything I was battling, it was November of 2020, right?
Hmm.
So we had already been, however, what, 8, maybe like 6 months in or more, like 8 months into COVID.
Hmm.
And then I was to start after doing 2 steroid treatments and seeing no um what's it called?
Improvements, right?
No improvement. Thank you. I can't think of words. Seeing no improvement from the steroid treatment, both IV and oral. So, like the oral, I had to take 20 some capsules a day to get the right dosage of the steroids. After getting all the side effects of cystic acne, nausea, pain, I had just gotten a spinal tap, so I was still dealing with the nausea from that. Um, the neurologist was like, "Okay, well, we're going to start you on Rituxan or rituximab." Which, come to find out, is actually a cancer drug, but they do use it for autoimmune cases.
Hmm.
And he literally said to me that this is a shot in the dark. We are just hoping that it helps because we don't know. That it seems similar to MS. So that's what we're going to go with. So you all know about that part. But the part that I haven't said publicly is that before starting this medication and everything was going on about the vaccines, and I feel a little more comfortable talking about this because of what's come out of, the vaccines not really even being necessary or that they even really helped. Um, I was pretty much bullied into getting the vaccine because the rituximab suppressed my immune system. So
Hmm.
he pretty much like put the fear of God in me and was like, listen, you can choose not to get the vaccine, but I'm telling you, with the way that this medication is going to suppress your immune system, if you contract COVID, who knows? You could have to be on a ventilator in the hospital. And putting that fear in me and my family, we were like, uh, you
You didn't
know,
have a choice.
I
It didn't feel
didn't
like a
have a
choice.
choice. I
Mm-hmm.
really didn't have a choice. And that's messed up. Like I'm still pissed off about that one, you know? So I'm curious what your opinion is on that with my story.
I think that, I mean, that's a hard, that is such a, they're trying to protect you, so that's understandable. I can understand that as on a provider standpoint. And liability wise, right? I mean, and a lot of people were dying at the time, even that
Right.
weren't on any immune suppressing treatment. So right, I mean, the risk of you having contracting other things outside of whatever you're already dealing with. Yeah, I mean, probably just wanted to make sure you didn't have to deal with other secondary issues that would
Right.
occur due to that. So definitely as a provider, I can understand that they wanted to reduce your risk of having any other issues. Um, yeah, that would have been such a hard spot because, right, we really didn't know a lot of
So
what
much
the
was
outcomes of
unknown.
COVID, right,
Everything.
COVID in itself,
Yeah.
plus your treatment. I mean, like he said, I mean, it was a shot in the dark. He was trying to do what he could. But unfortunately that's kind of how medicine is too, is that right, they're going to throw the kitchen sink at you of medications and that, but they don't really, there's limited education and other alternative treatments that could
Right.
be helpful that don't put you at higher risk of other things either.
And thank you for mentioning that because I did speak to him and I'm kind of like trauma dumping on you, so I apologize, but we've got on to the topic. Um
Yeah.
I I said to him, I go, what if I even said, what if I get Botox in my arms to stop the tremors? He
Mm-hmm.
said no. I said, what if I went on a complete paleo diet? Nope, not gonna work. What if I went on complete Mediterranean diet? Nope, not gonna work. Hold up, brother. How are you
Whoa.
gonna tell me this isn't gonna work when you're telling me the medication you're putting me on is a shot in the dark? So you're pretty much throwing knives at me blindfolded.
Mm-hmm.
Like, come
Yeah.
on. Come on. You know?
And
I
again, oh man, Jenna, that is so, yeah. But you're not the one. I mean, I hear these
know.
similar stories
That's
all the
what's
time
that
too.
but like that's terrifying. That is what's
Yes.
terrifying, is that the more I talk about it, the more I hear that others have gone through similar things. And I'm like, that's not okay. Hence why I
Yes.
started the podcast. But
Yes.
like it's not okay. Hence why we need more of people like Dr. Lay and like you
Mm.
to educate people that there are other options. Like, you
Yes.
don't have to only stay with this. And I'm not saying, like completely disregard conventional medicine. No, maybe it'll work for you, like you mentioned before, of having a little mix of both,
Mm-hmm.
doing some holistic with, some conventional. Maybe that's the cocktail you need for your healing. I don't know. I'm not a doctor, but I'm telling you from experience.
But I love your experience too, is that you knew intuitively there had to be something better,
Mhm.
and don't ever not listen to what your body is telling you, or what in your gut is true. And that's where I've helped hundreds if not thousands of people be able to connect that what they're hearing about themselves and being able to listen to that, and then finding out, oh yeah, you were totally right, there was something
Mhm.
that wasn't right that we needed to address, but everybody else was saying, oh, it's fine, or oh yeah, let's just do this medication and then it should be good. So that is something that is really important. Don't ever, let someone, that's another red flag. If a provider is squashing what you're saying that you feel is true,
in your own body,
in your
like,
own body, then you
wave
should
that
find a
red
second
flag.
opinion. Yeah, wave that red flag.
Wave that red flag. Because that nobody can tell you how you're feeling other than you. And
Correct.
listen to your body, listen to your gut, trust your intuition. I am telling you, it will save your life, honestly. But I
Yes.
feel like that's a perfect segue because we're going to play a game and it's called Myth or Medicine. So, are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's go.
Here's how it goes. I am going to read off some wellness claims, and Kitty, the expert here, is going to say whether it is a myth or if it's medicine, meaning that it's backed by medicine or at least functional medicine. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Ready.
Seed cycling can balance your hormones. And before you answer, if you can define for the people, the true crew, what seed cycling is.
Yes, I had to look this up myself. I hadn't heard of it until Jenna asked me, and to prepare for this, I'm glad she told me ahead of time because I wasn't familiar with that. But I was glad to know that this is something I do in my practice already. I just didn't have a name for it. But seed cycling is when you eat certain seeds to help during certain period cycles, hormonal cycles for females. So during ovulation versus PMS versus your period, your menstrual
Mm-hmm.
cycle.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was reading more into this, like I mentioned, I've already been doing this in my own practice, encouraging people to eat seeds. And so seeds are great. So seeds meaning like sesame seeds, chia seeds, pumpkin seeds, hemp seeds, and flax seeds are one of my top picks for seeds to add into your diet. But this method of seed cycling, in my opinion, I think, or I've seen it be more worthwhile to eat seeds on a regular basis versus kind of tracking your periods or tracking your cycle to eat them only at certain times of your life because they can be a huge benefit on a day-to-day basis. So why not just add these seeds on a regular basis, and then your body will utilize those seeds and those nutrients from those seeds when it needs it.
Amazing. See, I didn't know that. I didn't know about seed cycling either. When I saw it, I was like, okay, ChatGPT, like that that's a good one. I don't even know what seed cycling is. So we're gonna go with medicine on that.
Yeah, yeah. I think, there is some truth to it, and you don't need to, kind of spend time to really track. Well, it is nice to know how your body's working. So if you want to kind
Hmm.
of cycle it through like the needs of your body, by all means, yeah, I think it can be a great method to get to know what your body's doing. But yeah, having it on a day to day, it can be beneficial for bumping up protein, good fats, and nutrition that your body needs on a regular basis.
Amazing. Okay, the next one's a stanky one, and we talk about it, people. So if you don't like to talk about it, well, get used to it. You need to poop every day. Myth or medicine?
Yes, I get to talk about poop in my work, and it is an important topic.
Very important, people. Very.
So, in my work, I see that it is beneficial to have a bowel movement every day. And I just saw a Instagram post from a gastroenterologist that said it wasn't important. I thought that was really interesting. So, take information with a grain of salt. You kind of have to look at, again, your individual body and what it needs. But I use the knowledge of the work that I've done with thousands of people,
Mm-hmm.
plus functional medicine, plus Eastern medicine. specifically in Ayurvedic medicine, pooping is how your body detoxifies, or one of the ways. There's
One
many
of the
ways,
ways. Yep.
but this is a big way that your body can detoxify. So if you're not going poop at least once a day, what's happening to those toxins that your body needs to clear out? It's
Mm-hmm.
just hanging out. So when you're not pooping every day, that is a red flag to me in deep diving into understanding what's going on with this person's body. Why aren't they pooping every day?
Yeah.
And that tells me a lot health wise that, maybe you're dehydrated, maybe you're not eating enough fiber. So I go into all that information when someone tells me they're not pooping every day. But to me, and in my practice, I see, yeah, that there's huge benefit in going number two every day. That should be number one in priority for your health. Going that number two.
Absolutely. Guys, when I tell you, when I first spoke to my first nutritionist, Nicole, who was on the podcast in season one. Shout out to Nicole and Manoli with Living Fuel, their business. Nicole is an angel and really helped me in the beginning of my holistic therapies and going down the more holistic route. And so we talked about poop all the time because we talked about parasites and parasite cleanses
Mhm.
and the full moon. And today, everyone, is actually July 10th when we are recording. And it is a full moon today. So, parasites, fun fact, are more active during the full moon. So, pay attention to how you're feeling around the full moon and all of that. And if you want to hear more about that, go check out in season one, episode two, I believe, is me talking with Nicole because we dive into all of that. But like Kitty mentioned, pooping on daily is important. Now, if you're not pooping and you're pooping every other day, like, okay, I mean, all right, maybe you're okay. But like, if you're one of these people that I hear that you haven't pooped in like a week or 2 weeks, one, I don't know how you're standing because that would be so painful. And two, go see a doctor because you
Ye-
got some backed up issues.
Right, and even the quality is important too. If you're just having these little small, dry bowel movements,
Nugget.
yeah, right, little deer poops, I call
Yeah.
them, little rabbit poops.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not really helping your body detoxify, but there's a reason why that quality is kind of that way. And I used to be one that didn't poop for like a week, but I thought that was normal. I didn't really talk about poop with, my providers. I didn't
Of course
talk to
not.
people
It's a
about
weird
it.
topic.
It
Yeah.
is, but it's important
It
and
is.
yeah, and once I started deep diving into my health in my adulthood, I was like, oh, there was a reason why I wasn't pooping very often because, yeah, I was constipated and yeah, I was inflamed and that flared up my eczema. And so really getting that regular has helped my health balance immensely amongst, yeah, the other people I've worked with, yeah, that I've seen help improve their health by getting those bowel movements to be more regular.
Mm-hmm. So pretty much, y'all, if you got anything from the conversation, you need to be shitting every day. Okay. And that's some true talk.
And
If
if you're
I've
not,
ever
go
heard it.
get some help. Go talk to someone that,
And if you're
well,
not,
a
go
provider,
see Kitty.
not just a
And if
random
you're not,
person.
go call Kitty with
Yes,
Enlighten Holistic Health. Okay.
I'd be happy to talk to you about your poop because that is an important topic.
See, and then you become besties because you got that.
That's right.
Okay. You should fast if you're a woman with hormone issues. Myth or
Yeah.
medicine?
Yeah, this one's an interesting one too. People have gotten on the bandwagon of intermittent fasting. I have a lot of people that talk about to me about intermittent fasting and sourdough bread. This is what I do. I eat, sourdough bread and I intermittent fast. What I tell them is it can be helpful for some people, especially if you've had a big meal in the evening, the night before, then intermittent fasting to kind of help things rebalance, not eating until you're hungry the next day could be beneficial. But, I have people be careful of fasting and fasting too often. And I tell people, well, really, let's find out about what your body needs. Let's really figure out what that may be, and not just do it because we heard our best friend does it or we heard it on Instagram that that's a trend, and we need to
Mhm.
do it. But I'd be really careful because fasting can also stress the body too. And if we do it too much, well, our body's own cortisol is going to spike to help sustain us, increasing our own sugar stores, our own fuel source. And then instead of being beneficial, it's going to cause more inflammation in the body,
Mhm.
stress the body. When we do eat, we're gonna overeat, or we're gonna stress eat.
Mhm. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so that's not good either.
Okay. See? So pretty much y'all need to not listen and go by everything you hear on social media. Contact
Right.
a health professional, please and thank you.
Yes.
I could answer this for you because it's story of my life. Toxic people affect your gut health.
This is such a great topic or question. And it kind of goes back to your first question too about gut health, because our gut, we have 80 to 90% of our mood receptors are in our gut.
Huh?
80 to 90% of our mood receptors, I'll say it again because
Yeah.
it's hard to believe. 80%, 80 to 90% of our mood receptors are in our gut. So not in our brain, in our gut.
Y'all hear that? 80 to 90% of our mood receptors are in our gut. Continue. Sorry. Just had to put
So
that there.
yeah. So when we're upset about, when we're in a toxic relationship, and it doesn't have to be in a relationship like,
What I
yeah.
was in. Not saying I'm in one now. God no. But I was in one and that really sparked the autoimmune. So
Definitely. Yeah. That was, yeah, very much a big trigger for probably what happened with your health, Jenna.
oh yeah.
And it doesn't have to be a romantic relationship. It could be a friend relationship. It could be work relationship. Any sort of interaction when you have with other people, if it really upsets you, when we are so upset about it, it stops our gut from working properly. So yes, that it can definitely be true in what you're saying, that it affects our overall health, not only our gut but just in our whole body, because our
Yeah.
our gut is the main powerhouse of how we not only put in energy and food, but it digests emotions. And so when we are emotionally upset, and if it's on a regular basis, we're not happy, depressed, even if we're being mentally abused or physically or emotionally abused, yeah, our gut responds. And it's going to get out of whack and out of balance when we are in
Yeah.
that state.
Guys, it is no coincidence that I was in a relationship for about a year at that point. I had just closed on a year of that
Mm.
relationship, and it was extremely toxic. It was constant fighting. I was constantly having to defend myself. I was with a narcissist and it was just constant stress, feeling like I was walking on eggshells always. it was just really bad. And it's
Mhm.
just no coincidence that after being in that relationship for a year and then also losing my grandfather a month before symptoms started,
Oh, yeah.
that this onset of symptoms hit a month later. Like there's no coincidence there. So take my story as your proof that your gut health is 100% affected by toxicity in your life, just like Kitty was explaining.
Absolutely. And that's what the beauty of functional medicine, that's it's kind of a newer form of medicine, although it's based on ancient healing wisdom from things like
Yes,
Ayurvedic medicine, Chinese medicine, along with modern medicine and research that is facilitating and showing the benefits of these therapies. But that's the foundation of functional medicine, is finding the root cause and triggers, like these emotional events that occur. Yeah, it can just cause a storm of inflammatory issues. But they're just kind of festering underlying things that were happening, that really just ignited health issues.
absolutely. Well, that concludes our game of myth or medicine. Thank you for playing, Kitty. But
Yes.
now we are going to take some questions from our True Crew audience. I had posted on the stories a couple weeks ago that I was going to have Kitty on and for you guys to submit your questions. So I have a couple of really great questions. I'm excited for Kitty to answer them. So, our first one is, what's your perspective? And we've kind of touched on this, so feel free to not go too in depth. But what's your perspective on nervous system regulation and how it's related to health?
Yeah, it goes back into what we were just saying about gut health. Nervous system and the gut go hand in hand. Yeah, the gut is actually such an amazing, ecosystem in itself. It's got probiotics that will send messages to our brain and to our nervous system, and then vice versa. It'll respond to messages to our body. So yeah, nervous system regulation is so important in making sure, again, that our gut works properly. Um, but one of the areas of the nervous system that aren't worked out quite enough is our parasympathetic nervous system, our relaxed state, versus our sympathetic nervous system, which is our fight or flight mode. People are
Hmm.
always on the go, 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 busy, 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 doing all the things, checking off to-do lists. Um, and then working out at the end of the day, getting dinner ready, whatever it may be, and then doing more work and going to bed. So if we could, yeah, get that parasympathetic nervous system, getting that nervous system regulated, finding that balance to also get some rest time in, that really helps to optimize our health, balance our health, and overall, yeah, help the body work better.
Amazing.
Mind and spirit. Yeah, just everything works better.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Okay. How to choose proper supplements in the world filled with constant vitamin ads from influencers?
Oh man, that is a great
That
question.
is a really good question.
And it's so funny because I tell people all the time when I get this question, specifically melatonin is probably one of the bigger ones I'll hear. I'll have people ask me like, "Well, what about melatonin? Can I take melatonin?" And I tell them, our body produces our own melatonin. So when we're, drinking caffeine all day long, and then we're having alcohol at the end of the day to unwind, we're actually inhibiting our own melatonin, and then we're making supplement companies billions of dollars by buying melatonin to take because we're suppressing our own. But
Mhm.
instead, if we can help our body elicit and produce our own melatonin, then you'd save a lot of money there. So number one, you might not even need supplements depending on, when you really analyze or have, a health professional that looks at this holistic, method, can look at you holistically, really helps you to understand what is it that you and your body truly need.
Yeah.
Um, the other thing is I work with people to find supplements that can work well with their body, being careful of what ingredients are in there. When I prescribe supplements, I really have chosen ones that are full food based. If they're like multivitamins, I make sure that, yeah, there's something that you can actually digest and utilize.
Right.
Yeah, finding reputable companies that have been tested and are, certified, um, and have high standards. But ultimately, yeah, it's really working with a provider that can help you figure out what is it that your body needs and how can supplements help with that. And to remember too, supplements are meant to be supplements of in addition to diet and our
Mhm.
lifestyle
Yeah.
practices. They're not meant to solely be taken on their own.
Yep. That's a great point. I'm glad you added that. I'm interested to hear this. Are there a top 3 of foods every woman should consume?
Well, if you haven't already noticed, I am careful with my answers I don't make blanket answers because as we
Yeah.
start this talk, each individual is pretty different.
Yeah.
So we got to be careful of, blanket recommendations that yes, all women should have this, everybody
Right.
should have blueberries because blueberries are good for you. But that's not necessarily true for some bodies.
Right.
Um, but certain minerals are important for women. Iron is a big one that I see women being deficient in, uh,
Right here.
especially menstruating women because we lose blood every month. So
Yep.
then our iron gets depleted. But another thing that people don't talk about often is that our iron stores will also get depleted when we're under a lot of stress.
Mhm.
Stress meaning we're not getting enough sleep, we're working all the time, on the go, go, go. Caffeine can be a stressor. So taking those into factor, but iron is definitely important. And iron it doesn't have to be just from meat, but I love incorporating iron from pumpkin seeds, green leafy vegetables, kale and spinach. Again,
Mhm.
everybody's body is a little different, so those foods don't necessarily work with everybody. Actually, the seeds, I typically see that it does work for most people, but you do want to work with someone that can identify what you truly need, in order to make specific recommendations that work for you. But yeah, iron's a big one for women, and hormone balancing. Our hormones need iron. Selenium is another important one that people don't get enough of. A mineral that's found in Brazil nuts
Okay.
is probably a top source. But again, you got to be careful, and it's best to kind of see what your needs are. But our hormones need selenium, in particular thyroid hormone. That's a really important one. Iron for the thyroid is also important, and iodine. And iodine's from seafood and seaweed. So adding seaweed can be helpful for a lot of people.
Amazing. That is I'm glad you answered it in that way because I feel like that's going to really help people to where, like you said, you can't give specifics because everybody is different.
Hmm.
Everybody is different.
Yes,
Um
yes.
so I'm glad you answered it in that way. Last question is if I'm always tired, where do I even begin to answer that?
Oh, yeah. That is that is what keeps me busy in the work that I do. 'Cause I see so many people struggling with this, and and then right, there's so many reasons that that could be happening. So where do you start is to find a provider that can help you identify why you may be feeling tired. And usually providers will start with blood work. I usually will ask someone, well, when was your last physical? When did you last have blood work done? And if they had it recently, then I will go through and go, through all those results and kind of line by line, tell them what that means and if that could be a factor. But just starting out with, yeah, simple blood work, and it doesn't have to be any fancy lab work that, another red flag is, if it's, labs that are out of pocket, hundreds to thousands of dollars. No, these simple tests don't cost that much. It could
Hmm.
just check your blood count, iron levels, your thyroid, because those all play into, our energy and if we're anemic, it could check those things out, checking your liver, kidney function. Those are just basic, yeah, labs that don't cost very much, that are easy to check.
Amazing. That's great information. I hope those answers helped those of you who submitted the questions. Thank you for submitting. I think it was a good opportunity for people to have some questions answered that maybe they were hesitant to ask their conventional medicine doctors. So I'm really glad they got a chance to be able to ask you, who's been a part of both realms and is in that world. So Kitty, thank you so much for being on the podcast today and making time out of your schedule to instill in us all this knowledge and experience from the medical world and your world together. So, if you can you tell the listeners where they can find you if they're able to work with you, maybe telehealth? Do you work with people that are not in Austin, Texas? Tell us about your business.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you're not in the Austin area, I'd be more than happy to answer more questions or give you more guidance. Connect with me through Instagram at Enlighten Holistic Health. Jenna will probably post it. So, yeah,
Yes.
feel free to connect with me, ask me more questions, and I'd be happy to get you set up with a consultation if you're interested to find out more, deep dive into finding out root causes of maybe fat things that are, affecting your health.
Amazing. Guys, take her up on this opportunity. If there are things that you've been worried about seeing with your health, anything like that, any concerns, you know, you need to talk about your poop, call Kitty. I'm telling you.
Yes, I
But
don't mind. Do it.
like Kitty mentioned, I will have all of her information, the show notes, and in the description, as always, like I do with all my guests. If you learned something new today, tag us and let us know. Tag and we have a new Instagram account. So make sure you tag at True Talk TM. And if you're not following already, go ahead and follow us on Instagram. That's where you can catch up with all things True Talk podcast, catch up on old episodes, see what's coming up new. And tag us and let us know. Tag at Enlighten Holistic Health, so that we can hear what was surprising to you. And maybe if there's some red flags that you have noticed in your experience with conventional medicine, definitely let us know. And
If
oh,
you want to share
one
your health
last,
story too, yeah, share it on
yeah.
there. Would love to hear
And
that.
I can't believe I almost forgot, Kitty, to indict you into the True Crew. What would your walkout song be?
My daughters are really into K-pop, so I constantly listen to K-pop nowadays. And this is not a song, but an album from one of their favorite K-pop groups, Stray Kids. It's called Five Star, and
Okay.
I strive to, work getting those 5-star reviews, helping people feel better, optimizing their health, and getting that 5-star review.
I love it. I love that answer. That's amazing. All right, guys, True Crew, until next time. Thank you, Kitty.
Thank you. Thanks, Jenna.
Make sure to follow us on Instagram at The True Empire TM and follow the podcast on Apple, Spotify, or YouTube.